Hello, Grand Third Graders. It's Miss Autumn, and I'm going to get you caught up with your composition book. So you're going to need your blue composition notebook for math. And so our first page, if you look inside your first page, it's going to be your table of contents. So we are going to have 2 pages for our table of contents. So you are going to label the first page when you open your cover to table of contents, and we're going to put a PG, which stands for page, and 1, and our first set of notes is going to be on place value. Okay, so we're going to go to the next page, and that second page is also going to be a page for table of contents, just in case we need another page for table of contents. And then we are going to go to place value. Now, you will notice I've given this page a title. So we've written place value here, and we labeled our first page, page 1 of our page in our notebook. So some important vocabulary. We have digits. So the digits that we have are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And if you remember when we started talking about place value and we were watching that video on where we place the digits, that was one very important understanding, is that every time you move your digit to a different place value, the value of that digit can change. So for example, if we put the 2 in the ones place, then that would be 2. But if we have the 2 in the tens place and then we place a 0 in the ones place, that value of the 2 now becomes 20. Or if we move it to the hundreds place and we have a 0 in the tens and a 0 in the ones, then my value becomes 200. Place value has to do with what's the value of the digit where it is placed in a number. So, for example, let's say 234, the value of this 2 is 200, the value of that 3 is 30, and the value of the 4 is worth 4. So when we go to write a number, we usually write it in a standard form. It's a number written with digits in a place, and based on that place, they have a place value. So this all is coming together from our lessons when we started on our standard form, expanded form, and written form. Expanded form is a number written as the sum of the digits place value, which means that we take a standard number and we break it apart by its value. So the 2 is a value of 200, the 3 has a value of 30, and the 4 has a value of 4. Then when we talk about word form, we're using a written form as words to write our numbers. So again, we have 200. The 30 will be written as a word 30, and then we have 4 written out as 4. So if you need to pause this video for a moment so that you can complete your first page, go ahead and take a couple of seconds to pause, and then when you're ready, we can go on. Okay, so we're back, for those of you who took a pause. And now, if we go back to our table of contents, we're going to put a page 2 in our table of contents, and we're going to write 3.nbt.1. And this stands for numbers in base 10. And this standard has to do with rounding to the nearest 10 or 100. We can also use the word estimating when we use rounding, because that's what estimation is. It's a close approximation of what the number is going to be without using the exact number. So rounding or estimating to the nearest 10 or 100. So if you need to, take a quick pause your video, and complete your table of contents standard for NBT1. Okay, so now that we have that written down, we can go to our, again, that's going to be your second table of contents page. We're going to go past the place value notes, and we're going to move to the second page. Try to make sure that you don't accidentally skip pages. And we're going to put in our right-hand corner, page 2. We're going to, on the title line, we call this the title line, rounding to nearest $10 or 100. So if you haven't already had a chance, you're going to need your multiples of 10 chart. So that will be, if you haven't been using it, that should be in your blue folder, which is your DMA folder, in the back with the plastic sleeve. Inside that plastic sleeve are all your inserts for your DMA folder. Okay, so we're going to start off with our standard, and that's going to be 3.nbt.1, and we are going to write an statement, which means what can you or what should you be able to do when you're finished learning about rounding. So I can use place value, which is why we started off with place value, to round a whole number to the nearest 10 or the nearest 100. So the first set of notes that we're going to take has to do with rounding to the nearest 10. So I'm just giving myself a heading here, nearest 10. I'm just going to put parentheses here, 10. And I like to underline it, or if you have your highlighter handy, you might want to highlight of your notebook. So, like I said, if I have a highlighter handy, just might want to underline that to make it more noticeable. So the first thing we are going to do, either using a number line, and some of you may have already created your number line, or some of you might be using your multiples of 10 chart. So using a number line or tens chart, we have some steps to rounding. So step one, we're going to look for the two tens or find the two tens the number is between. Now, you also want to make sure that you are looking at the tens place when you're wanting to decide what two tens that number is going to fall between. So that's the first step. We want to find the two tens the number is going to fall between. Just going to put a little bullet there. Then I'm going to put another bullet. And step two is we're going to look at the ones place. And once we look at the ones place, you have to remember that in between each group of 10, 5 is right in the middle. So in between 10 and 20 is 15. In between 30 and 40 is 35. So we're using our understanding of our ones place to decide if it's less than 5. We round down to the lower 10. If it's greater than 5, we're going to round up to the upper 10. So that means if our ones place is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, if it's one of those ones, we're going to round up. If our ones place is 4, 3, 2, or 1, that if it's 0, it's already rounded to the closest 10. So we don't really need to put a 0 here because it should already be rounded to the closest 10 if our ones place is in the ones place. So if that's the case, we're going to round down. Now, be careful when we say round down, we're still going to round down, but we're not rounding down to tens, we're rounding to the closest 10. So now I'm going to draw a number line here, and we're going to do a few examples. Oops. And use your blue line to help you with drawing straight lines. It's usually helpful. I'm going to use 240 as my beginning point on my number line. 250. I usually try to do 2 finger spaces, so maybe that's a little too far. 2 finger spaces. So I'm going to do a second 250. Then I do another 2 finger spaces. I have 260. This is just to kind of make sure that they're kind of equal. So 270. And 280. Okay? Now remember that in between these groups of 10 is 5. So I have 245 here. I have 255 here, 265, and 275. This is just to help remind us that when we are less than 5, we round down to the lower 10, and when we get past 5, we round up to the upper 10. Now, at any point in time during this video, if you need to stop and pause, please do so that you can get caught up. But now we're going to take 242. So I'm going to use a number, 242. I look to see where I might have 242. So 242 might fall right there. And so the first step it tells me to do is find the two tens the number falls between. So 240 and 250 is where my number falls, was between 240 and between 250. Now, we look at the ones place to decide, is it past 5? So in this case, we know that 242 is not going to be past 5. So that tells us that we are going to round down, or it's going to be closer to 240. So it rounds to 240. Think about the number 265, which is going to also be on this number line, which is going to be right here. The first we ask ourselves is, what two tens does this number fall between? So we can see that it falls between 260 and it falls between 270. Okay? Now we need to decide. Now, since it's right in the middle, remember that even though it's 5 away from 260 and it's also 5 away from 270, they had to make a rule on where to round it. So they decided that they were going to, if it's right in the middle, we're going to round it up to 270. So this is going to round to, it rounds to 270. So this one, 242 rounded down. 265, it was right in the middle, so we rounded it up. So now let's do one more, and let's look at 279. So 279, we look for the two tens that it falls between. 270 and 280. And so when we round that, we remember that it's going to be, look at our ones place. Look at how close it is to 280. It's really close, right? So we would know that we round that up to 280. Okay, so go ahead and, I know this is probably, I'm writing a little quick, so at any point, make pause. And we are going to turn our page, and on the back page, on the back of that page, we are going to write notes for the nearest 100. So I'm going to use highlighter. Now, I already have the notes written, so I'm going to just show you. And so I'm going to show you real quickly what that's going to look like. So at any point, you're going to take time right now to pause, and you're going to write this out. And once you have finished writing those notes, you are going to paste your multiples of 10 chart on page 3. So we've gone from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, and your multiples of 10 chart will be on page 3. And I'm going to stop this video, and I will create a new video for our new notes, which are going to be on multiplication.